Okay, I really thought this outfit was gonna be a good idea, but now that I see it on camera, I am not so sure. Well, hello there, welcome back. This is a very special day for me because today, May 24th, is Pansexual and Panromantic Awareness and Visibility Day. This is a day for us to celebrate and promote awareness of pansexual and panromantic identities, and it was first celebrated in 2015, I think. So this is only the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 7th year of celebration. Clearly I'm very bad at math. I myself identify as both pansexual and panromantic, and I'm always looking for recommendations of books with pansexual representation in them. Because it's nice to see an aspect of your identity represented in a piece of media that you consume and love, isn't it? The prefix pan comes from Greek and it means all, but the word pansexual does not mean you're sexually attracted to all people. Or to all things, I guess, because you wouldn't believe the amount of times people asked me or joked about how we are sexually attracted to trees or animals or inanimate objects or pans, and it's just like, please quit it. You're not funny. That's the reason why I went to the 2019 Pride Parade dressed like this. And let me tell you, I was ready to smack any panphobes in the face with a frying pan. You know, just to give them a taste of their own medicine, but I digress. The word pansexual means being attracted to all genders, which does not mean all people. It's not the same thing. There's a lot of discussion, even in the LGBTQIA+ community, about what exactly is the difference between the terms pansexual and bisexual. Obviously, I can only speak for myself, but in my opinion, it mostly comes down to semantics. Like, bisexual means you're attracted to more than one gender, and pansexual means you're attracted to all genders, but I personally don't think that the two terms are mutually exclusive. There's actually a bunch of people who identify with both terms, or who see bisexuality as kind of an umbrella term under which pansexuality would be. I personally don't see bisexuality and pansexuality as the same thing, although I do see similarities and intersections between our experiences, both the good and the bad. The way I would describe my sexuality specifically would be being attracted to people regardless of their genders. Like, it doesn't mean that I don't see and respect and acknowledge people's gender identities, just that gender doesn't play a part in my attraction towards someone at all. Which again does not mean that I'm attracted to all people, or that I want to fuck all people, or that I want to fuck all the time. Being pansexual does not make you a hoe, just like being non-monogamous or a feminist or a Brazilian woman does not make you a hoe. I just happen to be all of those things, including a hoe. Anyway, I decided to vlog my way through 3 books with pansexual representation in them as a way to celebrate this day and my identity, and also as a way to give visibility to these books, of course. So the books that I've selected are Out on Good Behavior by Dahlia Adler, Wild and Crooked by Leah Thomas, and Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Hackwith. Now, I'm going to this blind. People told me that these books have pan rap in them, and I believe them, but I don't know if the word pansexual actually shows up on page, or even if there are actually pansexual characters in them, I suppose. But I have faith, okay? So let's all cross our fingers and get started. Oh my god. Oh my god. I don't think I'd ever read the word pansexual on page before. Like, all the books that I read with pansexual characters, it was usually more something that was implied, you know, hinted at. Like, there would be a description of the character's sexuality, but there wouldn't be the actual word pansexual, if that makes sense. Or even in some cases, the author themselves would be the person to come out and confirm the character's sexuality, you know. Which isn't a bad thing in and of itself, you know, there's nothing wrong with characters not using the term, especially if it's like a fantasy story or, I don't know, a historical fiction, maybe a character that's still kind of figuring out their own sexuality. Like, it's okay, you know, there's nothing inherently wrong with the word not being on page. It does a difference. Not gonna lie. This is the first time I can think of where I actually saw the word on page and the character using the word to describe herself, and it's nice. It's nice, not gonna lie, it's very nice. So I'm about 50% into Out on Good Behavior by Dahlia Adler. This is a contemporary romance. Is it new adult? I think it is new adult because they're in college. So yeah, a new adult contemporary romance. I feel like all I said right now was just gibberish. Turns out this is actually the third book in the series, which I did not know, but it also doesn't matter because like each of them are kind of standalones. It's that romance book series thing where each of the books follows a different character. So this one follows Frankie. She is a pansexual college student who likes fooling around with no strings attached until she starts having a crush on this girl called Samara. Samara is Frankie's best friend's roommate. Does that make sense? And she happens to also be most likely straight, so. And she's also the daughter of a southern conservative politician. This is like the worst possible scenario, girl. Just don't get into it. And the book basically follows the relationship as it develops. You know, there's not really a huge plot going on. It's just about the two of them getting closer and, you know, yeah. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but that's it, you get the gist. Frankie is thirsty as fuck, Jesus fucking Christ, and honestly, relatable. I've been there, I've done that, I understand. And having a crush on someone's thick southern accent, also relatable. I also want to read you a couple of quotes that are super relatable to my experience as a pansexual woman. The first one is Frankie's response when someone asks her what her sexuality is, and she goes, "I don't discriminate by gender or lack thereof, I say, because sometimes you just know I'm pansexual is going to be met with, 'What's that?' followed by, 'Isn't that just bi?' And finally, 'So you're down for a threesome?' This is so fucking true. I mean, I touched upon it briefly in the intro of this video, but like, most people don't know what pansexual is, which is fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with not knowing something, but sometimes it's just tiring, you know, to have to explain your sexuality to everyone, especially when you know that most people won't take it seriously. Like, the amount of jokes I have heard in my lifetime about how pansexuals probably fuck animals or trees or inanimate objects, you know, it's unreal. I am definitely guilty of lying about my sexuality and saying I'm bisexual just to kind of run away from having to explain what pansexual even means. So, yeah. Which is not something that I'm saying as if I'm proud of doing that. It's just sometimes I don't want to go through that, you know. I mean, the threesome thing still happens if you say you're bi, which is just sad. There's also this one interaction between Frankie and one of her best friends where the best friend is saying that Frankie cannot date her roommate and her teammates because if she did, things would get awkward, you know, between all of them. And then Frankie's like, "Oh my god, you make everyone off limits for me," but like in a joking way. And the friend says, "Oh please, drama queen. My teammates and my roommate are not too much to ask, especially considering there aren't any gender barriers to your options." And then Frankie responds, "You know that doesn't mean I find literally everyone on the planet fuckable, right?" Which, okay, very common thing to happen. I don't know why people seem to think that's a thing. Like, I don't know. There's also this bit where Frankie and Samara are talking about how some lesbians kind of discriminate against bi and pan people. And Frankie says, "But it is a thing. I mean, I've never actually dated anyone before, so I haven't had to deal with it. But the girl who helped my friend said realize she was bi wouldn't date her because she's also attracted to guys. Some lesbians care a lot about that sort of thing." Again, a very relatable experience to me. I've lost count of the amount of pan erasure and bi erasure and just panphobia that I've faced within the LGBTQIA plus community. You know, it's insane. Like, obviously no one is forced to date me or to want to date me, but like, to make that choice based on my sexuality just rubs me in the wrong way. You know, it's just panphobic. It's just panphobic, you know. There's no other explanation for it, and it's really disgusting because the things that I've heard mostly were that they didn't want to be with me because I was also with guys, and that they didn't want to be with me because I would leave them for a man, or that I was most likely to cheat on them, you know, which is just ridiculous. That's not a thing. That's not how it works. If that was the case, no lesbian would ever cheat on anyone, and no gay man would ever cheat on anyone. You know, if cheating is somehow linked to bi and pansexuality, then how do we explain homosexual couples and heterosexual couples that do it? it makes no fucking sense. And then there's also this bit where Frankie is explaining why she chose the label pansexual for herself. Pansexual felt like the best fit because I think it's the most fluid. A lot of people think it just means attracted to more than 2 genders, which I am, but plenty of bisexual people are too. For me, the difference is more about how gender plays into the attraction to someone, whether consciousness of it is actually a factor or those lines kind of blur, which I wholeheartedly agree with. I again talked about it on the intro of this video. But then Frankie goes on to say, I don't care what parts you've got as long as you know how to use them, which just kind of rubs me in the wrong way, and it reminds me of when I used to hear a lot of pansexual people saying things like, oh, I fall in love with hearts, not parts. And, I don't fall in love with people's genitals. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how falling in love works for any sexuality, though. You know that, right? Your sexual attraction, your sexuality, not necessarily has anything to do with falling in love. Like, there are people who are aromantic and have asexuality, and it also feels like this kind of sense of superiority, oh, I'm pansexual, so I fall in love with the right thing and you don't. And like, that's not how it works. That's not what pansexuality is. Anyway, so I'm gonna go back to Out on Good Behavior, and I'll come back when I finish it, which will probably still be today. So yeah, I just finished Out on Good Behavior by Dahlia Adler. This was fun. This was cute. The smut was hot, and I really liked the relationships and the friendships. The college experience seemed pretty spot on to me. Although I don't know the specifics of American college experience, the universal bits were pretty spot on, and I think the American bits seemed spot on, at least. Don't know if they actually are. Samara and Frankie are very cute together, and though they stumble a lot along the way, it was pretty fun to follow them as they developed, and seeing where they end up by the end of the novel. Wow. But I got pretty annoyed at times, I'm not gonna lie. Frankie was very much, I don't know how to say this in English, but like, that is this saying in Portuguese in Brazil that is não caga nem sai da moita, which basically, fuck, how do I explain this? The literal translation would be something along the lines of doesn't poop but also doesn't get out of the bushes. Now, how do I explain the meaning of this? It's someone who changes their mind a lot, okay? And in this specific case, Frankie changed her mind a lot about wanting to be in a relationship or not, and being good enough to be in a relationship with Samara or not, which was just, oh my god, so fucking annoying. Like, I understand that's a thing, and I even think that I was quite similar to Frankie when I was in the same situation as her, but for some reason I just found it pretty annoying to read. Maybe it's the moment I'm in right now, the headspace, I don't know. And Samara's demands were also a bit iffy to me because it almost came off as blackmailish. Because, like, I understand not being ready to come out and wanting to wait before you do, especially in regards to family. But she was putting a lot of pressure on Frankie to be a rock and, this very stable person. And this pressure of, like, I'm only coming out because I'm with you. It kind of feels like she is kind of blaming Frankie for having to come out. I don't know, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But like, I do understand where she's coming from, and I don't think she did so intentionally, if that makes sense. So it's fine. I was just annoyed. I am PMSing though, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Basically, there was no need for all the drama from either side, is what I'm saying. Also, the characters were constantly saying things like, "I'm fucking adorable, I'm fucking amazing, and fucking incredible," which I don't have a problem with per se, but I have no idea if people actually talk like that. So let me know in the comments down below, I guess, because I'm curious, honestly. But yeah, this was overall a pretty fun, light, easy read. The smut was very hard, and that's it. I think I would give it either a 3.5 or a 4, but I'm still undecisive on that. So if you want to know what I actually rate this book, stick around to the end of the video where I wrap everything up. Okay, I am loving this so far. This is Wild and Crooked by Leah Thomas. Oh, there you go. Wild and Crooked by Leah Thomas. I'm around 50% into it, and I think this is going to be a 5-star. I hope I didn't just jinx it by saying that, but I think it's going to be a 5-star. In this, we have two main characters, Gus and Callan, I think is how you say it. So years ago in Sandsboro, which is a small town in Kentucky, Callan's father murdered Gus's father, and he's been in jail ever since. Callan's father has been in jail because he murdered Gus's father. Does that make sense? I feel like that's my catchphrase by now. Does that make sense? Because I say in every single video. So the book starts when Callan has to move to Sandsboro with her mother, and she has to go to school there under a pseudonym, and there she meets Gus, and the two of them form this friendship without knowing who the other is. So this is one of those YA hard-hitting contemporaries, which, you know, is a genre that I'm finding out more and more that I actually really like, and it really focuses more on friendship instead of, you know, romantic relationships. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good romance as much as the next girl. However, I also really crave books focused on platonic relationships from time to time, you know. And Gus and Callan's friendship here really takes the spotlight. Callan was known her entire life for being white trash and trailer trash because she's poor and she lived in a trailer park. And also as the daughter of a murderer, you know, she never really had the opportunity to reinvent herself before. And now that she gets to do it, it's because she needs to, and all a choice that she actively makes, if that makes sense. And Gus really craves that, you know, that reinvention, because he can't reinvent himself. Wherever he goes in this town, he's either the disabled kid or the kid whose father got murdered. Meanwhile, Callan just really wants to be able to be herself, you know, and for the people of Sandsboro to stop considering her existence a sin and a crime. You know, she has nothing to do with what her father did, you know. But yeah, amazing characters, amazing friendships. I love how the story's going, and I love that I don't really know where it's gonna end up. Also, content warnings for ableism and internalized ableism. Both are addressed in the text, but, you know, it's still there. So if that might be triggering for you, maybe don't read this one. And there's also one use of the F slur in the book. So, but yeah, I'm adoring this, and I'm gonna go back to reading now. I love this book so much. I really love this book, like, so much. I don't have a lot to say about it. I said this before, I have a harder time talking about books that I love rather than books that I hate, because, you know, the feelings are a lot more complex, and so they are harder to put into words and to explain, if that makes sense. I don't have a lot to say other than if you like YA contemporaries, especially, you know, hard-hitting ones, give this one a go. Please try, because it's, my god, this is just gonna be me making faces. We have a platonic male-female friendship at the center of the story. We have a main character with cerebral palsy and aphasia, a side character with antisocial personality disorder, and a main character who's poor and suffered a lot for it, you know, and suffered a lot of bullying for it, and kind of developed these anger management issues as a result, which, you know, have been there. And we also have a lesbian main character as well as a pansexual main character. The word pansexual is never on page. You know, the character again describes his sexuality but doesn't really use the word pansexual, which is fine. You know, I don't think it's necessary to always have the word there, especially in this case where, you know, the character is still figuring his sexuality out. And I like to read you a couple of quotes where the character kind of describes the sexuality. So the first one goes, "Phil might default to being smitten by girls, but smitten is hazier for me. There was something arresting about Callan throwing an egg at us, about her tangled red hair and arching eyebrows and unfounded anger. But there was something just as arresting about Garth of the Goggle when I saw him today. Garth, beside a drinking fountain, laughing in a way that echoed in my skull, wearing a kilt that fit him so loosely that I wished I could adjust it for him. I think most people are arresting. Girls, boys, everyone." And the other one goes, "When it comes to people, I care about personality before anything else, and gender is another characteristic that factors into that. Maybe that does land me in one queer realm or another, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm in love with Phil Wheeler, does it?" And then just a bit further down he says, "I'm so gay and confused." I love the story here, and I really liked how we went a bit into how incarcerated people were demonized by society, and that extends to their families and their loved ones, and also the difficulties of having a loved one incarcerated, and how flawed and just biased and filled with holes the justice system is. The book is about justice and breaking generational cycles, and about, going beyond what people expect of you. It's about discovering and accepting who you are and trying to become the best version of yourself. Also, rural/small town life. And yes, I left this one for last because the word rural was just impossible to pronounce. I hate it. I hate any word that has too many R's. Rural, that's ridiculous. But anyway, 5 out of 5 stars, obviously, and I love it so fucking much. I love the characters, I love the friendships, and I want to protect them all with my life. And now I'm on to the last book for this vlog, which is Library of the Unwritten by AJ something, I forgot the name. AJ Hackwith, it's the name of the author. And yes, the word library is just as difficult as the word rural. Another one that goes to this group is the word horror. So fucking hard. But anyway, I've rambled on for too long, so let's just get into the next book. Okay, listen, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm really loving it. I'm currently around 60% into Library of the Unwritten by AJ Hackwith, and as I said before, I have no idea what's going on because this book is very weird, but I'm loving it. This one I do find a bit trickier to actually describe and summarize the story because it's weird. A little, so I thought it would be better if I just read the synopsis to you. Many years ago, Claire was named head librarian of the Unwritten Wing, a neutral space in hell where all the stories unfinished by the authors reside. Her job consists mainly of preparing and organizing books, but also of keeping an eye on restless stories that risk materializing as characters and escaping the library. When a hero escapes from his book and goes in search of his author, Claire must track and capture him with the help of former muse and current assistant Brevity and nervous demon courier Leto, who should have been a simple retrieval, goes horrifyingly wrong when the terrifyingly angelic Romeo attacks them, convinced that they heard the Devil's Bible. The text of the Devil's Bible is a powerful weapon in the power struggle between heaven and hell, so it falls to the librarians to find a book with the power to reshape the boundaries between heaven, hell, and earth. So yeah, that's the gist of it. There's a library in hell where all the books that were never written but that were somehow conceived, in the minds of the authors, reside, and those books sometimes materialize as a character from the story itself. And on this one, the word pansexual is actually on page. So, you like girls? A smile tipped onto Claire's face and she chuckled. I like interesting people. Everyone has their charms. The details never matter much to me. So you're pan? Pan? Pansexual, Leto explained. Is that the term now? And then she goes a bit more into detail on her own experience, but that will be low-key spoiler territory, so. But yeah, I'm just happy the word is actually on page. This lighting is very distracting, but gotta work with what I have, I guess. We have 4 point of view characters. Claire, who is the librarian of the Unwritten Wing in Hell. Leto, who's a minor demon, I guess you could say. Ramiel, who is a fallen angel. And Brevity, who's a muse and the librarian's assistant, Claire's assistant. There's another character who's part of the main cast, but he's not one of the POV ones, and I just adore him. He is amazing. His name is Hero, which is the character from the book that disappeared, and his name is Hero. The library in and of itself really feels like a character, and so do the books inside it, which I really like. The world building, the magic system, and all the different creatures that exist in this world are all fantastic. And the writing is very witty and funny. Every chapter starts with an excerpt of the Unwritten Library log, which functioned kind of like a journal to every librarian and assistant that worked there. And those bits were some of my favorite in the book because they had such amazing quotes and some really good ideas on writing and books and stories and all that. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to it, and as soon as I finish, I will update you on my final thoughts, I guess. War has always followed libraries, my apprentice. History has made no effort to hide the truth from us. Look at Rome. Look at the Crusades. Vanquishing an enemy and taking his books was just as strategic as taking his cannons. Books are knowledge weaponized, and what weapons you cannot steal, you must burn. This book was fucking amazing, which is the opposite of what this lighting is. This is really bad. I adore this book, so where to even start with it? I really love how at its core this book is about the power of stories and the power of words, and how they have a life of their own and how they might mean different things to different people at different times. And that really makes a story something mutable and ever-changing, you know. No story is insignificant. That's what the existence of the unwritten wing teaches us. No escapist fantasy, no far-off dream, no remembered suffering. Every story has meaning, has power. Every story has the power to sustain, the power to destroy, the power to create. Stories shape time, for Pete's sake. Once upon a time, long, long ago. Someday. And then what happened? Living author or dead, written or not, your story shakes the world. That's common sense to amuse and the idea librarians are supposed to honor. That every story, every human, matters. Stories can die. Of course they can. Ask any author who's had an idea whether in the head, failed to thrive and bear fruit, or a book that spoke to you as a child but upon revisiting it was silent and empty. Stories can die from neglect, from abuse, from rot. Even war, as Shakespeare warned, can turn books to graves. There are so many amazing quotes like that in this book, by the way. And the lore is so fucking good too. I'm in love. I'm in love with this book. And I only found out that this wasn't a standalone the moment I finished reading it. So, you know, it was a happy surprise. And I can't fucking wait to read the next 2 books. As for negatives, there were bits and pieces of the end that fell short for me. And I did see a character twist, I guess you could say, coming. But honestly, I don't give a shit. The book is still a 5 out of 5 for me. Like, for fuck's sake, we have a pansexual main character who's a woman in her 40s. Like, how awesome is that? Hero, Rami, and Claire are definitely my favorite characters, and I loved the banter between Hero and Claire. This book felt like one of those Quest video games, you know, that you have to stop at many points in many places between getting from A to B, you know. Like, there is an overarching plot, you know, that permeates the entire story, but you know, between coming from point A to point B, you have to perform many different smaller quests. Does that make sense? I feel like I explained that pretty poorly. It's all about the journey instead of the end result, basically. And it has great characters and world building, so like, pick it up. So yeah, I love this a lot and I highly recommend it. Let's do a quick wrap up, shall we? First I read Out on Good Behavior by Dahlia Adler, and this I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Wild and Crooked by Leah Thomas, and this I gave 5 out of 5 stars. And finally, I read Library of the Unwritten by AJ Hackwith, and I also gave this 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, that's it for today. Have you read any of these books? Did you enjoy this video? Let me know in the comments down below. I keep forgetting my fucking outro. This isn't normal. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. And as always, I'll see you around.